Hola, Frill Talk, and welcome to a new episode of Frill Talk. Today, I have Jasmine with me. Thank you so much for being here. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you doing today? I hope this heat isn't too bad.
Same to you. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well too.
Thank you. So tell us about yourself, Jasmine. How long you've been to Lolita? What styles do you wear?
My favorite style is our Gothic and Classic, and I have been in Lolita for going on about 15 years now.
Wow, nice. Do you have any favorite brands?
Favorite brands? My favorite brands are Alice and the Pirates, Mom Montier, Atelier Period, and Metamorphose.
Nice. I love Atelier. I recently got one of their bustle, the corset bustle dresses.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, they're so great. Do you have one? Do you have the purple one?
I not yet, but it is on my wish list.
Wow. So since you've been involved in EGL for 15 years, what originally drew you to the fashion?
Well, I've always been interested in fashion, namely historical fashion.
Mhm.
I remember as a kid watching like historical costume dramas on TV, not really paying attention to like the plot or like the dialogue, but really being like mesmerized by the clothing and the aesthetics and the backgrounds and just thinking that all that was just really, really cool.
Nice.
But what got me into EGL in particular, I think it was, I'd say, a mix of me getting into anime as a teenager and like seeing a lot of Lolita-like aesthetics in anime.
Mhm.
Particularly, I was anime like Rose of Versailles and Chobits and Until X-Holic, things anime like that. The music that I was really into. I'm also really into like J-Rock and Visual K and Lolita-like aesthetics really kind of dominate that genre.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think it was a mix of all of those things.
Yeah, because there's a lot of Lolita origins in Visual K. So, did you watch the Netflix reboot of Rosa Versailles, the movie?
Yes, I watched it when it first came out. I was really, really impressed.
Yeah, I loved it. So I had recently watched the original, the 1979 anime because I've always been curious about it. Because like when you go to like a Asian beauty store, like a Tesso, or if you have that near you or something, you always see like Rosa Versailles and you always see like Marie Antoinette and like Oscar. And so like over the years, I was like, I gotta watch this. I gotta watch this. And then I finally watched it so that I can watch the Netflix movie. So it's really recent that I watched it and I started it like changed my life. I'm like, whoa, I have a
Yeah,
greater appreciation to like a lot of the French like romanticism and like the architecture and like just like the whole like otome like aesthetic, and then watching the Netflix series, and it was like such like a musical, and I love musicals, so I don't know if you love the soundtrack.
I love the soundtrack. It was really good.
Yeah, I like downloaded it the same day. So since you've been in Lolita for 15 years, what's kept you connected to it over time?
A lot of things. I would say one thing that I really appreciated about Lolita is that through the clothing and through the aesthetics, it's really helped me kind of unlock the version of myself that I really want to be.
I resonate with that a lot.
Because I've always had, like, you could say, identity issues,
Mhm.
kind of trying to figure out who I am, and sometimes feeling like I have to hide myself from the world outside, the outside world.
Mhm.
With Lolita, I feel like I can be who I truly am without having feeling like I have to hide.
I know a lot of people, I mean, especially like a lot of us black folks, like, it's a form of escapism. So,
Exactly.
especially with how things are in the current
Mhm.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when you signed up that you recently returned to the fashion after a break. How did it feel like stepping back into it, to the community, to the wardrobe after some time away?
This is going to be this might be a very bad like analogy, but indulge me.
Mm.
Do you know the feeling when you're playing a video game and like there's this really, really hard boss
Mhm.
and you keep dying to it and it's like it really like gets you upset and frustrated and it gets to a point where like you decide to stop trying to fight this boss and you decide to go back, do a lot of leveling, do a lot of grinding, and then go back to this boss.
Mm.
And then all of your hard work pays off. You're able to get past it and continue with the game. And now it feels like you like the game even more now because there's more to explore, more to unlock, and you're satisfied with the game again because you've gotten past the thing that made it very difficult.
Mm.
And that's kind of how I feel returning to EGL. A lot of things have stayed the same, but many things have changed as well. A lot of things have changed in the sense that I feel like I'm ready now to really be in this fashion, be happy and really enjoy it and like really take joy in something that has meant so much to me.
Has your perspective on Lolita changed from when you
Definitely,
first started? Mm.
definitely. I started I started getting into Lolita around 2008, 2009.
Mm.
Back then the community was very, very different. Access to clothing was way more limited than it is now. I definitely felt a lot more insecure about kind of starting and dressing up, strictly because I didn't really have a lot of clothing starting out because being plus size back then it was a lot harder being a plus size Lolita. I would say the community was a lot more strict, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. They're a lot more strict about like rules and what you can wear and what not to wear. I particularly remember I was going to wear my first Lolita outfit to Otakon 2010. But at the time, I didn't have any blouses. I only had one JSK that I got off a Bodyline, and I ended up not wearing it that year because I was really kind of insecure about not having a blouse, even though it was like really, really hot that weekend. And honestly, in the end, it probably wouldn't have mattered anyway. I just felt like I had to follow these rules if I want to consider myself a real Lolita.
I am glad though that nowadays it's a lot more lighthearted, you know?
Definitely.
I-
I would say the style has grown so much in the last 15 years and
Mm.
things are things are a lot more inclusive and are a lot more, I wouldn't say lax, but like people are a lot more open-minded to like this fashion can be, and that really makes me happy because sometimes I really did feel limited in the years before my hiatus. Feeling of being limited is kind of attributed to why I ended up taking my hiatus to begin with.
So you mentioned being plus size. What are some challenges you face and how have you adapted or changed or overcome them?
Well, I would definitely say my biggest challenge is well having difficulty finding things that'll fit me,
Mhm.
but also just finding things that'll suit me in a sense that like something can fit and I'll be able to put it on, but it might not look right on me because everybody's different. So one thing I had to like learn early on was not only which brands will make things in my size, but also like which cuts suit me, which colors suit me, length and like which brands have the most forgiving shearing, things like that. Like to give an example, one thing I've learned is that um high neck blouses don't really suit me at all. So kind of like I'm wearing like a slightly lower cut blouse right now,
Mhm.
and I find like that kind of style suits me a lot better.
I like your necklace, by the way. Is that from Pooby?
It is.
I have,
I have like several of her necklaces. This one's my favorite.
yeah, I have the pink one too. It's so cute. And I saw that there may not be able to make them anymore
I
because,
know,
and it's like, no, I might have to get another one just to in case,
definitely.
the one that I have breaks. Wow. So is that why so you mentioned about whimsy goth, it speaks to you. Is that why it like overlaps with EGL and other romantic styles with you?
Definitely. Like I would say out of all the goth subcultures and substyles, Whimsy Goth is the one that speaks most to me personally because I would say it's the most Lolita adjacent, you could
Mm.
say. And also just in general, like the aesthetics of like romanticism, fairy tales, and like royalty, it all really just speaks to my soul. So that is really that's what I really kind of like them like most.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't heard Whimsy Goth. I mean, to be fair, I'm also kind of a just pink girly, so I may not just be up to date on the goth terms, but I mean I know whimsy, like whimsical, like in general, but I'm not sure if I've seen like a lot of whimsy goth, just me personally. What are some like
Yes.
I guess themes and motifs that goes into whimsy goth?
Themes and well, I'll admit I'm kind of learning it myself because the first time I heard the term whimsy goth,
Mm-hmm.
it was on a weekend trip to Salem about a year ago.
Ooh.
And I, of course, like I was wearing EGL most of that weekend. I think it was during, it was in October. And one of the stores I went into, they had a lot of really nice things that could go with like Gothic Lolita and Aristocrat in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And the person I was talking to in the store, they're saying that what I was wearing a slightly longer dress with with this blouse, and she
Mm-hmm.
said it was very whimsy goth. And I was like, whimsy goth, what's that? And she was kind of going down the side, like what like some of the motifs and the aesthetics are. She mentioned that it's like kind of like with witches, fairy tales, things like that. When I got home, I decided to do some googling and just looking at a lot of the pictures and videos of like what whimsy goth is, and it really also really spoke to me. I feel like outside of Lolita, that's kind of my aesthetic.
That's so cute. I definitely want to explore Whimsy Goth more after this. So is there a lot of like recurring themes that inspires your coordinates? Like I'm guessing Whimsy Goth may be like one of them, or like is there anything that inspires your coordinates in general?
Some things that definitely come up a lot: jewel tones, particularly red and purple, because those are my two favorite colors. I love pastels, but I have found that like pastels don't suit me as well as jewel tones. Princess sleeves, like what I'm wearing right now. Things kind of kind of relate to like aristocratic style hats and feathers, pearls, things like that.
Yeah, like me personally, like I definitely consider, I guess, like I'm kind of classically sweet because there's a lot of sweet prints that I don't really care for. Like a lot of the fruit prints, I wouldn't even look at them. Like in general,
Same.
I just don't care for fruit prints. And I
Mm,
like border prints and such, but I definitely like a lot more like simple pieces that I'm able to kind of like regentify it. So like make it more like aristocraty, regency kind of celestial divine kind of like themes.
that,
So like I've
I
definitely like
get that.
noticed that like I've kind of been leaning into that more, which I guess people may consider to be kind of classically maybe some whimsy. I don't know. But I like that with Lolita we can like experiment. Aside from Lolita, do you wear or have worn any other J fashion styles?
I kind of dipped my toes into Geru a few years ago. Didn't really suit me, so I still like the style, but it's one of those things where like I acknowledge that I like it, but also acknowledge that it's not really for me.
Hmm. I love Gad. I love seeing it on people. I don't know. I
Definitely.
don't know if it suits you either. But I wouldn't mind doing like a style swap with a gal one day. That would be fun to do. So going back to like different brands, and more of like being a person that's plus size, what brands or indie designers do you feel like are is doing a really good job with size inclusivity or needs more work?
Well, because I really like Gothic Lolita,
Mhm.
definitely Atelier Perio. They've done really good with including more plus size options.
And they use black models.
That too.
Mhm.
Uh, I fully admit that the thing that really kind of set in stone that I was going to go back to Lolita was seeing. I think it was a few years ago they released one of their corset jumper skirts in a plus size, and that made me really happy. Even though I had been like thinking about getting back into Lolita like for a couple of years by that point. Seeing that really was like, okay, I think it's time.
Mm.
And all throughout last year, like everything that they released, like their their corset skirts and their blouses and making plus size options, it's like it's really kind of rejuvenated me because before my hiatus, Altair Peria was one of those brands where like I really, really loved, but knew that unless it was like incidental, it would never it would never be something that I could wear and it would suit me. I would say that a lot of brands before the pandemic, if something was plus size, it wasn't by intention. It was just like, oh, it just so happens that this sharing is more generous than another brand. But the fact that they have been like really intentional about adding adding plus size options to their brand has really been it's really been encouraging for someone like me who can be in this fashion and wear things I specifically like and have it suit me because Gothic Lolita has always been like one of those sub styles that isn't hasn't always been the most forgiving for plus size girls. I would say like brands like AP and Meta and Baby, those brands definitely have a lot more plus size options. They're still limited, but there are more options of them. I would say the only brands, most of the brands that have like goth like kind of catered to the gothic aesthetic are like indie brands like Hanuli, which is also they're also doing really good with adding plus size options. I own a couple of Hanuli dresses too.
Yeah, I love their Crystal Guardians one. But that's just because I love magical girls. So you also mentioned that you were a lone leader for a time. What helps you stay connected to the fashion or find joy in it when you are by yourself?
Definitely my friend group.
Mm.
I'm the only Lolita in my friend group, but they all love the style. They love seeing me dress up.
Mm.
Sometimes I feel like when it's a day when I don't feel like dressing up, they almost seem disappointed, which is always funny because I always sometimes feel weird that
Mm.
I'm like standing out with them, and I worry like, you okay, okay. I hope they don't think I'm being weird because I decided I wanted to dress up like a queen today.
Mhm.
But no, they're very supportive and they really like when I dress up. Their support, along with generally just finding happiness in just wearing the clothes themselves. It's also one of the reasons why I like going to events and conventions
Mhm.
because that also helps me feel connected to the style.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned you're going to Teco and Otakon. Teco, I went to it a couple years ago and it has a great fashion track. Otakon does too. So I'm super
Yes.
excited. I'm gonna live through you because unfortunately I'm not going to neither of those. What are some things you're looking forward to anime conventions when you see a fashion programming?
One thing I'm always just really happy is when they have fashion track at all. Before the pandemic, it was really usually very difficult to garner interest in Jfashion in particular for other conventions. Like I think I for a while I had a list of which conventions had a solid Jfashion Jfashion department and which didn't. And I think I could count it on like maybe one hand for a while.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, like nowadays, like even like smaller like local conventions may have like a Lolita panel 101. And this weekend was Anime Expo, and on Friday they had the fashion show. It was like at least four, I think it was like between 4 to 6 like J fashion brands that was
Oh
on
yeah,
there.
I saw that. I was looking at some of the reels on Instagram. It was really cool.
Yeah, I'm living through the images. And I believe, yeah, the MC for the fashion show was Rin Rin Doll. And just seeing like all of the fashion show pictures so far was really cool because it's like Anime Expo is literally the largest what anime convention in the Northeast, and seeing
Yes.
a fashion show in it. And this is it's at least it's been a few years since they had like the Jfashion show now. So it's like really awesome to see that. So we touched upon a little bit about escapism. So how has Jfashion or Lolita has it played a role in your personal healing and your self-expression when navigating like mental health?
Yes. Lolita has really been kind of something I've used as kind of a healing thing for a lot of the struggles I've dealt with in my life. It's really Lolita has a lot of my mental health issues kind of center around my identity and feeling kind of push and pull between different different expectations
Mhm.
for who I should be and who I want to be, and also feeling like the person who I want to be, I that's unrealistic.
Does that affect how you view when you're I guess like being like a lone leader, does like affect that at all?
It does affect it because to an extent I do feel kind of weird being a lone Lolita. It's not so much that I'm adverse to the idea of interacting with other Lolitas. It's more so that because of my anxiety
Mhm.
and just sometimes feeling out of place in amongst people, it's sometimes difficult for me to interact with people, even when I know that we're kind of all on the same page.
Mhm.
Because I'm just like always chronically afraid of being judged or doing something stupid. So it got to a point where I figured that maybe it's best if I kind of isolate myself, which I know isn't good, but I'm still trying to figure things out in that regard.
Mhm. So then, what are some things that you do for fun as a lone leader that like I guess helps you like cheer up or really feel like you're actually like connected? Because you know there is a lot of like Lolita nowadays is definitely online. Like, do you go to like any like online meets or anything like that?
I do attend online meets occasionally.
Mhm.
I also like going out for tea and visiting museums and bookstores and like places where like I can feel like really pretty and elegant. And also I do a lot of reading like by myself while in Lolita. Before the pandemic, one thing I really liked doing was collecting old GLBs, and I still have a lot of the ones that were translated into English. And lately, I've been looking through them a lot, kind of kind of as a retrospective of how much things have changed. Like thinking about like how some of these brands don't even exist anymore, or sometimes wondering like some of these girls who are in these fashion snaps, are they still doing Lolita? Have
Mhm.
they moved on to other styles? Just things like that.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but GLB is, I believe they're doing like digital version now,
Yeah, I saw that.
which is super exciting. It's like, oh my God, maybe they're trying to stir something, and then maybe eventually, if we're super optimistic, they'll do like print. Because I feel like now they will pop off.
It would.
Like I feel like perhaps the time period when they were physical, they did pop off, but at the same time, perhaps because we have more accessibility now, it might just be easier for like people to like get GLBs. Like I remember like you used to buy GLBs in like a lot of like manga and anime shops, like Kinokuniya, like for example, like you can find those. And like I know at least in my local ones, you can find the Otomo no Sewing magazines from Misako. So it's like Please make more. Maybe 2026. Because I personally also have a few, and I even have then with like the original like patterns. So I'm never getting rid of those.
And definitely.
So since you are plus size and a Lolita, do you feel like you have a unique perspective perhaps than like other people that may not identify as that? And if so, what would be some advice or such for someone that is?
I would say I definitely have a different perspective because for someone who is not plus size, it was being in this fashion will definitely be a lot easier, even with the fashion being more inclusive and more accessible.
Mhm.
It's it's still like still limited to an extent. I would say that with me, I really kind of have to be I kind of had to like make a decision to be committed to this fashion because it was going to be harder for me to find things because it was going to be more difficult to kind of have that to kind of match that aesthetic and because with the limited resources that were available to me.
Mm.
And I would say that um, well, when you're in alternative fashion, you kind of have to make a decision to be committed to it anyway. But I would say definitely when it's not very size inclusive, that commitment is you likely feel that a lot more.
Hmm. Yeah, and also being a person of color too kind of just adds another layer.
Oh, definitely, because I will admit that a lot of a lot of my like mental health issues have been centered around not just me being plus size, but also being African American
Hmm.
and and feeling all the more out of place because of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, at least thankfully, we do have for, the Facebook group and Instagram, the Black Lolita community. And while we haven't had a retreat in a while, if you can go to it, I highly recommend. I went to not the one before, because they went to one of the Carolinas, St. Helena,
Oh
where
yes, I saw that, and I really wanted to go, but it clashed with work, so I couldn't. But I
yeah,
really hope that maybe in the future they'll do another retreat that I can attend because they always look really fun.
yeah, I got the chance to go to the one before that one. So they went to New Orleans. And I didn't realize, like I do, but like that was my first time ever being like in the South, like ever. Like I'm from the East Coast and I've pretty much only ever been in the East Coast in New York and New Jersey like my whole life. So I really had no idea. I mean, I guess the only like South I've ever been is Cuba because that's where I have family. Uh, but go to New Orleans and the organizer, they made it as black as possible. Like it was great. Like we went to on this historical tour that was owned by a like a black family, I believe, that does like the tours. And we went to like a black owned tea shop that did like a whole tea service and stuff. It was super cool. So highly recommend. I hope they do more. So what's something that you wish more people understood about being like a lone Lolita? Like I feel like a lot of people understand the struggles, or at least like have like a basic understanding of what may be some struggles like being a plus size. Um, but what is something you wish people understood about being like a Lolita?
I would say every lone Lolita has their reasons for not being a part of a community.
Mhm.
Mine just happened to be just having anxiety and feeling and having difficulty interacting with other people sometimes. I would say one misconception that I have noticed, because when I have had Lolita friends in the past, they've always been in states outside of my own,
Mhm.
and often they were also lone Lolitas. And one misconception I've noticed is that if someone is a lone Lolita, but they aren't there is a community nearby that maybe they're isolated because of like toxicity or drama or whatever.
Mm,
And I would say that all of my interactions with my local community have always been very wonderful. Everyone in my local community has always been very nice to me. So my isolation has just mainly been self-inflicted that I'm trying to work on.
mm. Thank you for sharing that. That's I can only imagine that was a lot, honestly. Because I can understand like why would people think that? Because when you think of like Lydia fashion, you think of like communities. And
Yes,
perhaps people may think like, oh, they're the Lolita. What did they do? But I mean, sure, we have our the gossip and being
yes,
catty, sure, but that's not always the case when folks literally like just it's just may not be like right for them at that time or at the point of their lives at that point.
yes.
If you
I
could,
will
go ahead.
I will
Sorry.
say that it's been about a year since I got back into the fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And while I haven't had the opportunity yet, I do hope to kind of maybe reconnect with my community.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. That is one goal that I have because I was never really part of any community before my hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of would like to feel that sense of inclusion at some point because whenever I've interacted with other leaders, it's always been very pleasant and really fun.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, most times, like even in like my experience, I haven't had like any. Well, that's not true. There's been a couple of times where some communities are,
Mm,
questionable, toxic, but you do what you got to do.
yes,
But at least my current one is really great. And at least because I lived in a different part of um the East Coast for a little bit. Where I first started Lila, I had a very positive experience and welcoming to the community. So that was great. So if you could tell your younger self, your younger Lolita self, what would it be?
okay. I'm going to be very candid when I say this. My first couple of years in Lolita were not very pleasant.
Mhm.
Um, they were very difficult, and I sometimes feel like I should have taken a hiatus sooner, but I digress. I would say to my younger self, trust your instincts, doubt yourself, don't doubt like, what you want out of this fashion and what you want to be. Definitely a form a group of people that can support you if you can, like really support you, and ultimately just trust your instincts.
Mhm. Do you need a second? I just want to ask, just with the
No,
truth.
I'm fine.
Okay, just making sure you're okay, because I
Mm.
know that some of these questions are, kind of tough.
What is your experience in EGL have been like?
Mine's, wow, I don't get asked this question a lot. I guess it depends. I mean, overall, positive. It's been really positive overall. I mean, there's some bumps in the road, but when like, so I'm in my 30s, so like, and I started in my early 20s. And, as you're like growing up as a person, you realize some things is not meant for you, or some people are not meant for you.
Yes,
Especially relating with like when you are active in like local communities and just certain personalities may not mesh. So I
yes,
think for me, it's overall it's been pretty positive. Just me being a Black woman, I've had my fair share of unfortunate circumstances due to my skin color. But unfortunately, that's the normal. Don't like that it's the normal, but yeah. Um, so I would say it's been overall pleasant. I've made a lot of great friends. One of my best friends that I've met was through Lolita. A lot of other good friends I made through Lolita. Like I feel like a lot of my friendships, um, who, um, I have now, like my personal friends are we're all through Lolita, so it's really great. And then me being able to like talk to like people that like I may not have met, like for example, you, is really great. So I'm glad I have more people that I can talk to. Um, so yeah, it's been pretty positive. I love this fashion and I love this community, although, has some work to be done.
So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and like at least like nowadays, it's great that Lolita is more accessible, um, especially to people who like maybe like very petite and like just plus size. Because I didn't join Lolita in like the live journal days. I joined in like 2015, so it's been like basically like 10 years for
Mm.
me. So I feel like when I joined uh brands that more brands were like slowly starting to like add like bigger sizes or like smaller on the plus size sizes, and so seeing like that evolution has been like interesting, and at least
Def
from what I
Definitely.
yeah, and see from what I know, like a lot of the online community used to be on live journal and etc. Do you have like much experience being on live journal when you
A lot of experience. I remember like my first experience talking with other Lolitas was through LiveJournal.
mm,
I would say I was on LiveJournal, like kind of going through the online comms for about a year before I finally made my first couple of purchases. That's kind of how I learned the style, learned like the different like rules and things like that.
mm,
Um, it's definitely been interesting, like seeing how things have evolved,
mm,
but particularly a community, because for a while it was on LiveJournal and then kind of to Facebook, and now everything is like on Instagram, and that's also very interesting.
yeah, and
Uh,
like I know a lot of Lolitas, especially like Japanese Lolitas and like brands, Japanese brands like use Twitter. But then a lot of like US based Lolitas are trying not to use Twitter or
yes.
Meta. So it is interesting to see that evolution. How do you feel about that?
Um, I'm kind of ambivalent to Twitter. I mostly use Twitter because I have a lot of Japanese friends and they still use Twitter. I do have Blue Sky that I use to to talk to my friends like in this area. I'm kind of like my opinions have always been kind of like pragmatic, you could say.
Mm,
One thing I have noticed I really like though is that a lot of Japanese brands are also they now have like separate like accounts for like interacting with their overseas base,
yes.
which I think is awesome. I remember like I very vividly remember wanting to make my first purchase from Baby in 2010 and like reading through all of these things that you had to do to get your order correct and not potentially get banned from ever buying from Baby directly again, and chickening out so many times because I was just so anxious about not about getting it wrong, and waiting several years until finally I found the dress I wanted, being sold on EGL com sales, and finally getting it, and then when the San Francisco store opened, and being happy that now there's a place where I can buy directly from Baby if I wanted to and not have to worry about being banned. So yeah.
Yeah, Baby used to have a store in New York City too, but
Oh yeah,
unfortunately,
I remember because I went to the opening.
oh, nice. Yeah, unfortunately, it closed in like 2018,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
I was
Yeah.
very sad about that, but I'm glad I was able to go.
Me too. I'm so glad. Like I think I went like the year or two before it closed. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I mean, we do have the Lolita Collective
Oh yeah, I
in
love
the
Lolita
Midwest.
Collective.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to go out there just because a little bit out of the ways for me.
Same.
But I am hoping that um maybe some sort of event may start like near there that's close to it or at least on the way.
Mm.
But at least in the Midwest, I'm not sure if you heard, but there's the Great Lakes.
Yes, I didn't go this year, but I am definitely planning on going this coming year because and Chantilly was just announced as a guest, and I really love their clothing, and I really love the designer. She seems very very sweet, and I love and in my early days they were one of the only brands I could fit, and so still have a lot of love for them, and and she's never been well, she's come to America a couple of times, but every time I could there's something coming came up that I wasn't able to attend. But this time I am making a point. I have to attend this one.
Yay. Yeah. And like at least you know the dates and if
Yes.
you got your ticket already, you're set.
Yes.
So I know a lot of people from BLC are going and so if you do end up going to the tea party, there is a BLC table. So you may want to
That'll be
pick
fun.
that. Yeah. So I hope a bunch of us will be there. It'll be great. I'm super excited. I believe yesterday or today, Violet Fane was also announced to be at the Great Lakes. So
Yeah, I
that's
saw
super
that.
exciting. I love that they're like, it seems like they're definitely planning on bringing different guests each time. Because this year's was Altia Puro, um, Mirandol, and I don't remember. I think there was one more. Um, yeah, I actually think they were the main guests. Yeah, they were the main guests. So then I'm super happy to see like other like indie brands. So I'm not sure if Violent Fane has been to a con of any
I
sort.
I don't think so.
Yeah, like I mean they've like, do the remote vending, sure, but I don't think they've like physically been at an event. So I'm super excited to see that. I own one of their prints and I'm super excited. I wonder who else they're gonna announce. Although in November, there is a tea party with Triple Fortune, the Gilded Age. So that would be something in November. It's just a 1 day event, so it's not a
Yes.
full weekend, but at least we're seeing more events, pop up here and there. How do you feel about that compared to like when you
Oh,
started?
it is so awesome because for a long time the only like events you could go that were really doing J fashion were at conventions, and that was always a very much a hit or miss. A lot of it kind of really depended on a community and like how committed they and organizers of the convention were to bringing J fashion programming to their conventions. And for a while, uh, I'm I'm going to forgive me. I'm going to get a little messy right now. For a long time, just from my personal experience, a lot of a lot of the conventions that were doing J fashion programming really were problematic,
Mm,
and that also kind of really muddled my experiences before my hiatus. So the fact that we now have other other options independent of conventions is really awesome. And the conventions that are doing J fashion programming now, like they are actually locked in and serious about it.
mhm.
So and that is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think we were talking about this off camera, like Anime Expo, bringing in several, or maybe earlier, we were brought in several guests, and it's like really cool. Like, I don't know if I personally would go to Anime Expo because it's the biggest one.
I I've been to Anime Expo twice,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be honest, it's really fun if you like have something in mind that you really want to see. But for me personally, it's it's way too crowded, very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It's very overstimulating, and it's very hot.
Yeah, it's
I think
4th of July weekend.
the last time I went to Anime Expo, it was 2013, and
Mm-hmm.
that was because a J Rock artist that I really admire was in attendance, and I really wanted to see him. But if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't have gone to Anime Expo and probably would not go again. But I mean, but that's just me. That's just me. I te- I know like what my I guess you could say my boundaries are when it comes to like going to really big events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I recently went to Anime Boston and I was there as press, so I was basically working the whole time. Um and I did appreciate that they had like a quiet room
Mm,
for like attendees, like you can go in and out, stay as long as you want, to decompress and whatever. I took advantage of that because it can be
definitely.
overwhelming. Like Anime Boston is a pretty good sized con too. And when like running around, at least in my case, running around, filming and etc. people, it can be a lot. Like I
Yeah,
will say, it can be a lot.
I went to Anime Boston last year, and it was actually my first like real like convention after since the pandemic and since returning from my hiatus.
Mhm.
And it was definitely it was overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I haven't seen like that quiet room space very often in cons. Like I feel like that was my first time seeing it in Anime Boston.
I think it's more of a new development.
Yeah.
I know Katsucon has something similar,
Mm.
or at least it did when I was working with them because I used to staff with Katsucon.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they might have because I went 2 years ago and I think I remember seeing something on the programming about like relaxing or whatever, like quiet room essentially. So I'm really glad like a lot of at least especially with these like anime spaces and like alternative spaces like we are seeing like acknowledging that hey not everyone can go to every single panel and it can be a lot because there is a lot of overlap of people with like mental health issues or etc. And being in these sorts of like nerdy spaces or alternative spaces. How do you feel about that? Like how cons are essentially catering and helping with that accessibility.
They're a lot better about it now than they were, I would say pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I, I think one thing, one good thing about the pandemic is that it really kind of shone a light on how a lot of people, even just outside of the fear of of this virus, that a lot of people do deal with like mental health issues. A lot of people are neurodivergent and sometimes have issues kind of with either communication or feeling overwhelmed. And I think during that time, during the pandemic, when everyone was overwhelmed, it kind of really made people realize that these things are issues.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of things happened during the pandemic, but I will say that that is one good. I think it's easier now to acknowledge these things than it was before.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there's less stigma and like more understanding and open-mindedness about that, at least in
Yes.
in my circles. Because at least I know I feel like also like the internet, like TikTok, kind of helped with that too. Because people had a space to like just talk to into the void or
Yes.
whatever, especially during the pandemic, since we weren't allowed to go outside. Although sometimes I do wish maybe we should just shut down for a day.
Hmm.
Especially with everything.
How do you navigate being a person of color in this particular fashion with occasional negativity and issues surrounding that? Like,
Mhm.
how are you able to keep yourself grounded, finding assurance in your identity?
Yeah. That's a big question. That's a lot. I feel like there's multiple layers to it. Cause when I first started Lolita, it was the main reason that I actually got into Lolita is because I saw a black person in Lolita, like in real life. Like I was at an anime convention and like at that point, like I was already like familiar with like the other J fashion styles and like I was and like my first J fashion style was Decora. So I like and 30K because you know, just accessibility and it was just easy when you start out. And then I remember going to like a local con and I saw like a dark-skinned black woman in pastels. She was wearing a I forget what's the name of that print, but it's from Bodyline with the squirrels. It's the squirrel print. It was in lavender. And I was just like amazed that like, oh my God. And like I mean, I guess I'm light skinned, but like she was like several shades darker than me. And I was like, oh my God, we can wear this. And then it was kind of like after that, it was a wrap that like I absolutely had to wear this
Yes.
fashion because like I was because I feel like with like when you're into like anime and stuff, like you see Lolitas like every time. Um, you see Lolitas in a lot of animes, and there's always like a blonde wearing goth, very pale skin with like the power.
Yes.
So like that's always like the typical stereotype in like
Yes.
anime. And even like black characters were like very sparse in like the early 2010s and early 2000s in anime. And so just seeing like a black person in real life wearing Lolita kind of just solidified it for me. And then I think it also just helped that the kind of person that I am, um, I don't want to say I can be confrontational, but I do have tendencies where like I'll stick up for myself and I'll stick up for like my friends if something's like going on. Like I definitely am like a paladin, like with D&D. I'm definitely a paladin for sure. Like that's always like the class that I play as in any like D&D game. Um but I think it's just like a lot of like um at least for me, like, you know, I went through like therapy and stuff, and like I still do, like I'm very open about like stuff like that. Because I feel like in general, like, you know, taking care of your mental health is not just for people that like have like anxiety or like PTSD or whatever. It's just like everyone, you know, should have learn how
I
to
think so.
learn their own mind, right? And so I think it's just helped me realize that like I really don't give a flying F about what people say. And I know like that's very blanketed, but you really, really gotta believe it. Like you really do. Like it's kind of like, you know, like us as black people, like we already like looked at sometimes like as subhuman, depending on the person. And when you're wearing a loud fashion, alternative space, like, you know, there's days that like I feel like kind of nervous or whatever when I am wearing Lolita, but at the end of the day, it's like you wear it for you, like you wear it for your own joy, like you mentioned, you know. So it's like, and it also helps like being part of a community. So like when BLC like was a thing that I found out, I was super happy to see something like that. Um, and so I'm just hoping that like, and also what helped me when I went to RuffleCon twice actually, and the first RuffleCon that I went to was like there was so many black Lolitas there. And I was just like, oh my God. And like I was like wearing Lolita at that point for like a couple years. And I was just like, wow. So I think for me, like really seeing like in real life, like other black Lolitas, like not just wearing pinks, also wearing like all colors of like all styles and etc. It was just like really great, like kind of just solidify, like, yeah, this is an alternative fashion. And like at the end of the day, we are gonna stand out. However, like there is a solidarity with us. And I just feel like we like really have to like believe that and like not always have like our guard up because not everyone has like the illest intentions, like, you know, like especially like people that may not understand this fashion or like why we're wearing something different. It just maybe like curiosity. So I think it just really it takes time. Like for me, it took time. It took time to get here. So it wasn't like a and it wasn't like linear either, like with, you know, like even with like mental health, it's never like linear. So I feel like having like a community does help. I feel like just with everything that I do, I feel like it also like helps me like kind of reinforce that like yeah, Lolitas are like a lot of different shades of white, different shades of browns, like everything. Like we're definitely the rainbow, and we wear the rainbow because we're all different colors.
Thank you for answering that so
Thank you for
honestly.
asking. Thank you for asking. It's not often I get questioned. I usually do the questions. So for any like new Lolitas or like newbie Lolitas, what would be some advice that you would give to like the newer Lolitas?
I actually have a lot of advice I would give to new Lolitas, but for sake of time, I'm going to attempt to keep it limited.
There's no limit.
Okay, so find community in however whatever that means for you, whether it be friends or your local community. Like being able to having that support definitely will help you with kind of finding your identity as a Lolita.
Mhm.
But it also helps to again trust your instinct. For plus size Lolitas in particular, definitely don't ever feel like you have to conform to a particular style or aesthetic because it's accessible. And also this is more practical for plus size Lolitas, but sometimes with clothing, length and cut are more important than actual fit because in addition to like your size, there's also the matter of like how tall you are or how short you are, and like something may fit people totally different just based on the length.
Yeah, I agree. Cause like I definitely like notice like I hate when they do like sack dresses.
I love sack dresses aesthetically, but it's one of those things like with Gadu that I acknowledge that I just cannot wear.
Yeah, like I have a few like OP cutsos and they kind of are like I don't want to say sack dressy, but they kind of are like they're really cute, but I do wish that like the construction of them was thought about a little bit more, especially in the chest area because you know
Definitely.
the a good chunk of Lolita, it's a lot of femmes and women that wear this fashion, or at least like that may be perceived as femme. Um so it's like, you know, some people might have some chest and, you know, just try to be fair with everyone. Maybe have
Yes.
different cuts with like different lengths. But because a lot of brands just do the one size,
Mm.
that's just how it is. Although at least nowadays we do have indie brands that do more than one size. Like Meta does do, um, I believe they do like the straight size and then like the plus size and then plus size, which is really
Yes.
great. I know I believe Sleepy Land does like one or I think between like one or two or three sizes, something like that, like with blouses too. So it is great seeing that. So if you were to start Lolita, let's say today, what would be like the first thing you would buy, like after the dress?
A very versatile blouse. Um, I don't know if I don't know what they're called. I call them blouselets, where they're like it's not a full blouse, it's like a half blouse, but it's like very stretchy,
Mm.
and and more often than not they're sheer, so they're kind of really meant to be worn over a dress. But I really like those. They're really helpful in the summer when I don't want to put on like a full blouse with something because it's very hot.
Mm.
So probably one of those, either that or probably a very nice hairpiece that will go with everything.
Yeah. I feel like I also resonate with the blouse because like there was someone else the Sunny they did the Frill Talk episode in May that they said the same thing like a blouse a blouse to go versatile blouses like are needed. They said the first thing they would buy is a blouse and I just think that just resonated because it's like yeah, a blouse can do a lot.
Hmm.
Like for some reason we just think about the main piece or you know when starting out in Lolita you just think about the main dress and that's it.
Oh no, it looks like in the last year, since getting back into Lolita and kind of rebuilding my wardrobe. Because of course, like when I took my hiatus, I sold most of everything. So as I've been building up my closet again, I've noticed that I actually have way more blouses than I do dresses, which is cool because I'm still like hunting down dresses and pieces that I particularly really like. I'm still I'm still hunting down like dream dresses and things that I know that I will be wearing like more than a handful of times. But definitely, I have a lot of blouses, and that's awesome because I didn't know one of the reasons why I didn't wear a lot of Lolita like for my hiatus is that I admit that I didn't really have a lot of versatility. For me, I would say my focus back then was really building up my wardrobe with main pieces and more importantly main brand pieces.
Mm.
I felt at the time that that would make me more legitimate as a Lolita. If the issues regarding my size and my race weren't already a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm so glad that like Lolita is more flexible. Like nowadays, like the rules are just like a guide.
Yes,
But like once you kind of like have your handle on the guide, like you can experiment. Like there's
definitely.
yeah, like I personally like did like a pastel goth look for the tea party at the Great Lakes, and I feel like that was like oh my God, that was so great. And then I remember a few years ago when I went to Anime North, I did because the guest at Anime North that year was the Shiro Nuri artist Minori and Angelic Pretty. And so I kind of meshed the two. So I did like a Shiro Nuri AP look. So it's like I want to experiment more and like I feel like lately like I haven't as much just because it's been hot.
Hmm.
Weather also also is a factor too. But I do love seeing like a lot of different like styles in Lolita. So like I feel like nowadays, like what do we call it? Like coquette now? Coquette, cottage core. Seeing that in like Lolita is like really cool. Anything you want to say to newer Lolitas that might be struggling? Perhaps like just finding like their own style. What would you tell them?
I would say think to what things really speak to your heart. I know it might be tempting to kind of follow trends and follow like what's popular. I remember like as I was beginning into Lolita, Super OTT Suite was really popular. 2009, 2010 were really years that like a lot of really iconic prints were dropped, and I admit I did feel like kind of pressured into kind of to adapting that style of Lolita, even though being completely honest, it wasn't really my thing. Really cute, but not really my thing. So I would say don't feel like you have to follow trends. Now, if there are trends you like that you genuinely enjoy, that's great. But ultimately, you are in this style for you and for your happiness. And if following trends will not make you happy, don't do it because you'll just feel more out of place. And if in a style that really kind of is supposed to, well, for me, gives me peace in regards to my struggles with my identity, it's very important that I like what I'm wearing, that I have my own sense of style. I used to chase trends. I did have a phase where I was really into Sweet Lolita, but in hindsight, Gothic Lolita, Classic Lolita, those speak to me a lot more.
Yeah, that was great. So what are some of your dream prints or dream dresses?
A lot of these dresses I've had at some point that it's a matter of just getting them back. My ultimate favorite print from Alice and the Pirates is Starlight Carnival. It's so like just lush and the print is just so pretty and I used to have it in red. every time I wore it, I was going to an event that I had a lot of fun at. So I have a lot of memories connected to it. And I was so sad when I had to sell it. So I'm really hoping at some point I can find it again and make more wonderful memories.
And then you're
Oh,
gonna get all the colorways.
yes.
Well, thank you so much, Jasmine, for being here. I really appreciate it. I had so much fun.
And
Just
so it was really fun.
just as a reminder to everyone, Jazz is here because they signed up to be on Frill Talk, so it is all voluntary, and I truly appreciate it. So if you do want to be on a future episode, there is a link in my bio and all of my socials, and you can be here with me. Thank you so much, Jazz.
Thank you.
And this has been Marina, and I'll see you on the next Frill Talk. Bye bye.
Nice.